Do you ever wish someone would draw you a map and give you the directions to the career of your dreams? If so, consider this podcast your GPS to a career where you feel strong, fulfilled, and passionate about your work, day in and day out. On this show, I am sharing the tools to help you advocate for your strengths, discover your passions, and learn from folks who transformed their careers for the better. My name is Joyel Crawford, your fairy god mentor, and with my 18 years of experience in HR at a Fortune 50 company and 20 years of coaching and mentoring top leaders, I am thrilled to be your guide on this career journey. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Career View Mirror, where we take a closer look at the journeys of remarkable professionals and their careers. And now today we have the pleasure of speaking with Laurie Ruettimann. Laurie Ruettimann is a sought-after workplace expert. She's the author of Betting on You, and she's a speaker who's been featured on notable channels like CNN, NPR, and publications like the New York Times. Her work focuses on fixing work by putting people first. Putting people first. Imagine that. Laurie, it is an honor to have you on the podcast today. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
It's just my honor to be alongside you and all the great people you've had the chance to interview. And also, your thought leadership is just remarkable. And the queen of self leadership herself, that's you.
Oh, I just love it. You're like so good with the titles. Thank you so much.
I mean, this is what I do for a living. I just, come on and flatter people, but I mean it with you. I mean it.
Well, you know what? I will take it because I'm flattery operated. So I love it. I love all of it. So tell me a little bit more about how did you get into this whole business of being a workplace expert? Like where did you start off? You didn't just hatch out of an egg. I always say that, but where did you get the spark to get into being a workplace expert?
Yeah. Years ago, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, like most people. And so I
Mhm,
just listened to other people tell me what to do. And I had
mhm,
really good people around me who said, "You're going to go to college." And I was really flattered and honored because no one else in my family had gone to college. So I had a lot of help getting into school, had scholarships, had adults who guided me.
mhm.
And I thought, like anybody who's first generation, I should go to law school. That's where it's at. And I'm so glad I didn't do that because honestly, I couldn't afford the student debt.
Oh my God.
So at the end of my 4 years of college, I ended up in an HR department at a candy factory down by the St. Louis, Mississippi River. And I began a journey in human resources that kind of continues today. And through that, I've just seen how the world of work works and how it doesn't. And I have developed some thoughts on that.
I love it. I love all of that. And speaking of those thoughts, I would love to know what's on your mind. It's almost the end of the month of
Yeah.
the new year. And my mind is blown at how time has flown by. But what have you seen? Like, what would you like to dive on into and talk about today with us?
Well, there's so much to talk about, and you'll have to forgive me because, like everybody else in the world, I have a bit of a cold right now. So I'm a
Okay.
little leaky, but that's kind of what I want to talk about because
Mhm,
we are coming out of this time of the pandemic, and it's almost like we've forgotten the lessons of COVID. So that first and foremost is on my
mhm,
mind. We had this period of time where just a little bit, not a lot, we thought
mhm.
about humanity. We thought about other people. And it's like we are back to work and everybody's getting sick and there's no rest, and that whole thing about work-life balance and mental well-being is completely gone. And so
Mhm,
when I think about the world of work and how everything is rushing to get back to 2019, I'm worried because the
mhm,
technology that we're looking at is not looking backwards at 2019. If anything, AI, machine learning, generative AI,
mhm.
conversational AI is looking forward, and
Yep.
I'm not sure it's thinking about humanity either. So it's a really weird time that we're in. And when I think about the future of work, I'm a little scared.
Yeah, it's almost like blank. Like, I don't know about you, but like, usually I'm able to visualize and kind of see ahead.
Yeah.
Um, I consider myself pretty visionary, but I've been asked a couple of times, like, what do you think's going to happen in the future in 2020, like
Yeah.
back, a few months ago. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I can't give you any advice because it's all very nebulous and
Yeah.
unknown. It's almost like, there's no work. Like,
Yeah.
how do we redefine what work looks like now?
Honestly, you are onto something because when I look at the future of work, I'm looking at an AI driven B2B economy.
Mm.
And that does not include humans except to help the businesses, the corporations thrive.
Mhm.
And so it's almost like we're going to have one strata of an economy that's prospering and thriving and using a currency that's outside of the US dollar. And then there's the rest of us. And what are we going to do? Because we're not going to be project managers or supply chain leaders or even human resources professionals. That's not going to be needed because that kind of work can be done so fast by machines. And so I think the future of work looks a lot like improving humanity.
Mm.
It can look like caregiving. The
Mhm.
future of work can look like us incenting one another to take care of ourselves, to not give one another colds or norovirus or COVID or whatever's going around, right?
Mhm.
Can also look like just becoming more thoughtful, critical thinkers and more educated and more artistic. So there's the work that we classify as work now,
Mhm.
meetings and reports and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be machine driven.
Mhm.
There's no work for humans there in another couple of years. But the real work starts with trying to figure out what humanity looks like. And from there, we can have a lot of different conversations about how that happens, but
Mhm.
it doesn't have titles, it doesn't have hierarchy, but it definitely has a lot of self-leadership and a lot of individual accountability.
And, I think a lot of, I'm thinking about some of our listeners, and viewers who are like, oh, it sounds so soft, like
Yeah.
warm and fuzzy and
Yes.
get back to the human part of, uh, and it's, you know, part half of the department that we used to work in, human resources, kind of putting the humanity back into the work that we're doing. So what are some ways that people, it's because it's a mindset shift that you're proposing here.
It's
How
more than a mindset shift. It's something that's being talked about in Silicon Valley because,
Mhm.
the labor economy is, I don't know, a couple $1 trillion. I mean, it's
Mhm.
absolutely imperative that we take people and we allow them to contribute, to grow, to learn, to
Mhm.
thrive, to do things, to build things, to be better people. But the way that it's structured today is a construct, and it's not going to look like this in a couple of years. So someone who's interested in engineering. So, take, for
Okay.
example, someone like my husband who went to school to be a
Mhm.
chemical engineer, throughout the years has done less and less chemical engineering as he's grown in his career and is doing more management and leadership and motivation and strategy work. And I think a lot of that strategy work, that thinking, that
Mm.
innovating can
Mhm.
still be done, but it's the other work that's under it that can be automated or done through advancements in robotics and bioengineering. So the future of work looks like a lot of people going back to school to really understand what makes humans humans. So that's
Mm.
psychology, that's critical
Mhm.
thinking. That's also educating others on how to expand and educate humans so that we can stop thinking in an old framework and start thinking in a new framework. So teaching people abundance thinking, teaching people how to actually apply old critical thinking philosophies to a new world. And the way we get people to do these things is not by paying them to go to a 9 to 5 job, but by instituting something that great thinkers have called universal basic income. And I think that is actually the future of work, where
Ooh,
you
and
get a
tell me
dividend.
more about this. Tell me more.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, actually, we're in a time period where a lot of people are quoting Martin Luther King Jr., right? So back in
Mhm.
1967, he gave a speech at Stanford University, and he talked about how poverty is eradicated through money. duh, right? We all know this. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the ways to guarantee the eradication of poverty is to pay people a guaranteed minimum income. These businesses that have buildings, that have empires, that have grown in this world haven't done it alone. They've done it on the backs of American citizens and the backs of American taxpayers and the backs of indigenous people, enslaved people. There's a
Mm-hmm.
whole history there. So it's
Mm-hmm.
time for these companies, especially in the future of work where it's AI driven and B2B, to start paying a dividend back to humanity. And so Martin Luther King Jr., in his brilliance in 1967, talked about a guaranteed minimum income, that companies pay American citizens for the right to do business here. And that is the underpinning of basic income. And universal basic income is this idea that without a means test, you
Mm-hmm.
get money every month to spend as you wish. And there's been pilot programs and beta
Mm-hmm.
tests out there where we've seen how this can play out in Chicago, in Alaska, and all sorts of places,
Mm-hmm.
where if you give people $1,500 a month, they spend it on really important things like housing and food and education, so healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really the future of work. The future of work is getting a guaranteed minimum income and challenging American citizens to go out and be the best version of themselves, but not just selfishly, but for the community and for humanity.
Now, how does that start? Does that start in our legislative branch? Are we looking, you know what I mean? Like, does it start with the government? Do companies just go bold
Yeah,
and start this? Like, where does it, where does this come from? Like,
great.
it's a great idea, but like, how do
Yeah.
we initiate it?
Great question. So there are beta programs out there that are, going on in New York City and Minneapolis and Chicago, where philanthropists have donated, really forward-thinking philanthropists who've made their money in technology and
Mm-hmm.
healthcare and electronics are funding these pilot programs to see, does this scale? Where do people use their money? And from there are all sorts of foundations, including a foundation that I sit on the board of called ITSA, that are really trying to figure out, like, how do you scale this? How do you create a platform? How do you make sure there's no fraud? How do you make sure that, people get the money and actually spend it and they're not being forced to give it to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered, but it is definitely a collaborative effort between governmental entities, businesses, and communities alike.
Wow, it sounds like I want to be another. I'm a legislative advocate for the National Alopecia Areata Foundation and
Yeah.
the Coalition of Skin Diseases, and I'm like, okay, now how do I become a legislative advocate for this? You know?
Well, we need people right and left, and we
Yeah.
need people who are interested in really unleashing human talent, because while we have the future of work, in my opinion, in the opinion of so many others, being this AI driven B2B economy, it doesn't mean that humans can't still do amazing things, that we can't create, that we can't innovate, that we can't unleash a new form of capitalism
Mhm.
and do things in completely unexpected ways. 25 years ago, we never expected the iPhone to exist, let alone to be what it is today, right? The iPhone really only came
Right.
into existence in the late 2000s.
Mhm.
So as we start to enter a new half decade, right? A new way of like thinking about America and capitalism, imagine all the things we can do if we stopped sending people to beige on beige offices, right? Returning them to work in cubicles where everybody's getting sick for jobs that
Mhm.
make less and less of a difference that automation can do. And we actually encouraged people to go back to school, to learn, or to care for one another. If we wiped out consumer debt, if we wiped out medical debt, because the new economy doesn't need us to pay that back, right? They're
Right.
making money through crypto and doing all of their things at the upper
Mhm.
strata. Imagine what we as humans could do. It's unimaginable if we had the freedom and the power to learn and grow and thrive and care for one another. So I am I'm both scared about the future of work, but I'm also
Yeah.
super excited.
It sounds very exciting. What can we do? Like, what do you think? And I always think about I have this Choose Joy calendar, and the theme is about being today is about being persistent.
Ooh,
And so, what could we do as individuals? What can our listeners do to kind of take this on, or even try to initiate or support this kind of caregiving or new way of work in
yeah.
their spaces and places?
It's a great question. Even in this weird transition period where we're still all working our 9 to 5 or 9 to 8 jobs, and going to corporate offices, the differentiator from worker to worker is how radically human you are. And I don't mean this in a
Mm,
soft way. I mean it. Can you think faster than the next human? Can you anticipate
mm,
what they need? Can you understand motivation? Can you understand human psychology and concepts around performance, right? And excellence. And
mhm,
so one of the things that our audience can do is start to get smart about human psychology. And there are a lot of ways to do that. You can watch YouTube videos, you can go on LinkedIn Learning, you can go on Coursera. I mean, we live in a time where education has been unlocked. The paywall is down. So the smarter you can get about human behaviors, the smarter you can get about your own behavior and be one step ahead of everybody as the economy starts to change. So I would start there,
love that.
really get smart about human psychology.
Really get smart about human psychology. I love it. I love it. What gets you like out of bed in the morning? What's your why, Laurie? Like this is all such great thing. These are such great things. And I know for me, it's to motivate and inspire others to take action in their lives and their careers, right? So that's what I love. I love that. What about you? What's your why? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Well, what gets me out of bed in the morning is my unending, unequivocal love of life. And it's such a weird thing for me to say because I'm such a cynic and I'm such a like a Debbie Downer at times. I don't expect a lot out of humanity, but I think we've been given one life. And we all, as
Mm.
much as we may have faith or a religious tradition or a belief, we
Mhm.
really don't know what comes next. And so to bank on what's to come is pretty risky, but to invest in what we have and making it better is so meaningful and so important. And I've often taught people in my work that we fix our jobs by fixing ourselves first.
Yes.
But I really believe that we fix the world by fixing ourselves first. So I get up
Mm.
every morning excited about working out and, spending time with the people I love because if I'm doing these right things, like I volunteer quite a bit, if
Mhm.
I'm living a good and righteous life, I know it's not just about me. It's going to enwrap and envelop the people I love and the people that interact with them. And it is a positive downstream or ripple effect
I
for
was just about
everybody.
to say that. I was like, it's a ripple effect.
Yeah, yeah, I believe it. I've seen it. And I have benefited from so many people who unselfishly put themselves first. We're committed to their well-being. We're committed to learning and growing. We're
Mhm,
curious. We're
mhm,
absolutely committed to taking good risks and showed me how just by
mhm.
living through example. You
Yes.
don't need to have a formal mentoring relationship to learn from people. And I have found that the best mentors in my life don't even know my name, but I've watched them and I've
Yes.
learned from them. And that's how I have grown as a human being. And I hope that I can do that for other people. I'm not looking to be Tony Robbins or even Mel Robbins, right? I'm not looking
Mhm,
to inspire anybody overtly. I'm just looking to I don't know, give people a good experience with me,
mhm.
and maybe they can take that experience that I have with them and have it with others as well. So that's what gets me up,
I
my
love
love of
that.
humanity.
I
And wait,
love it.
my love of cats, and I have one right here too. Oh, there you go. There's Roxy.
Oh, hi, Roxy. Roxy's getting her feature.
She is. She's like right here in my business as I don't want to sneeze on her. So anyway, she's amazing. But yes, my love of humanity, my love of all things in the world, I think gets me up. If I didn't love the world, I wouldn't do the work that I do.
You know what? You're right. I think, and thank you for sharing that because I think a lot of times when and you've been somebody I've been professionally stalking for a while, and I was so honored to be on your podcast a few years ago,
So great to
and
have you.
and and then you honored my book as like one of the top books to read. It was just I'm flattery operated, and I was just like, oh my gosh! I put it in my dig folder, which is my damn good folder,
Good,
and
good.
I was like, so it was one of my top achievements to be seen by you and just have
Mm,
the honor of being interviewed on your podcast
thanks a lot.
because you're somebody who I admire. You're doing such great work and sharing your thought leadership, and people are listening. Yes, there are people like me who listen and watch, and it's not to make our viewers or listeners paranoid, but people are watching your good deeds in
Yeah,
action.
that's
And if you are tapping into your own humanity and taking care of yourself so others can, so you can take care of others, I think that, like you said, it's this ripple effect that can impact so many, many people that we don't even know, we're not even aware of. But that's, starting with yourself. It's very, very inspiring. So thank you very much for sharing.
thank you.
Thank you.
The 25-year-old version of me would hate all that stuff and would be like, barf, And I kind of hate it myself too, to be honest with you. But it's true. Like, I recently turned 50, and a lot of
Happy
people,
birthday.
thank you. And a lot of people always write these posts of like the 50 things I learned through my 50 years. And
Hmm.
like, have I learned 50 things? I don't know. I'm kind of stupid. So, I learn lessons the hard way. But one of the things I've definitely learned is that you cannot be good for other people unless you're good to yourself. And that is a hard lesson. And, for
Hmm.
years I thought, well, I'm a decent person and I've always been a great person. I volunteer and I contribute, but
Hmm.
you cannot achieve the things you want to achieve in the world with negative self-talk, without
Yeah.
caring for your body, without caring for
Hmm.
your mind and your soul. And, it took me a long time to realize all of that. And it's taken me even longer to talk about it. But I'm ready to start having that conversation. There is no future, let alone no future of work, if we're unhealthy, if we're mean to one another, if we're not
Absolutely.
fueling ourselves positively,
Hmm.
emotionally and physically, if we're not moving to the best of our ability. I mean, this life is really a gift. And although I want to believe what I believe about what happens afterwards, again, we don't know. And so the best we can do is really to maximize this opportunity. And that's what I'm trying to do in the next 50 years. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I was just thinking about how you said your 25-year-old you would be like, blah,
Yeah.
stop talking about that. But this is my favorite question to ask my guests is what career advice would you give to your younger self? It doesn't necessarily be your 25-year-old self. It could be the little Laurie. But
Yeah.
what career advice would you give to your younger you?
Yeah, I think a lot of us, and even if you're not a first generation college student, we often go to school and associate it with a career.
Yes.
And so I was very focused on like, how am I going to pay my student loans back? How am I going to earn money? What am I going to do after college? And there was this direct pipeline from school to college to the modern day factory of corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
And although I have a degree in English, I wish I would have read more fiction. I wish I would have read more stories. I wish I would have slowed down a little bit to understand the point that people were trying to make instead of just studying for the test.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I lived a life where I could go back and reread major works of fiction or
Mhm,
read new
mhm,
things or meet wonderful people in my career who demonstrated those lessons in other ways. And I'm
mhm.
really grateful because relationships and stories are all we really have. And
That's
you
very
have
true.
them no matter where you're born and no matter what income strata you're born into, relationships and stories move the world. And that's where I would have invested more time.
Mm,
Yeah.
lovely, lovely and delicious. I love all of it. And I think little Lori would be happy to hear that message too.
Oh, no, little Laurie was a little punk rock, so
Which is Punk Rock HR. She's also, everybody, she's a host of an amazing podcast. And I had the honor of being a guest on it, which
we're
is
so good.
it's a
I
great,
we will make sure everybody has a link to that show.
oh yeah,
It's such
we'll
an
definitely
awesome
make sure
episode.
we link. And it's just been, I just love, I love the idea that you've allowed me to professionally stalk you now, without calling the cops or a legal team.
Oh, never. And you can't stalk your colleagues and your professional friends, right?
That's so true.
LinkedIn is the platform, right? So it's
It
not
is.
even stalking anymore. It's just staying abreast, staying
Yeah,
on topic, like checking in.
yeah,
So I do that with people who don't know me all the time. I
yeah.
learn from so many people online, even to this day, and they don't know I exist, but I'm going to copy their moves and in my own way, because it's been so successful for them. I think, why not me? And I
Yeah.
think,
Why
yeah,
not?
why not you out there? If you see
Yeah.
something that you like that I'm doing, that you're doing, copy it. There's no new art in this world.
Nope. Nope. Case it. That's what I learned from one of my mentors. He said, copy and steal everything.
I love
And I
it.
was just like, all right.
Yeah. There's no copyright on creativity, that's for
Right.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, well, I thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your insights and your futuristic visions. And I think that that is, it's almost like a call to action. Like
Yeah.
we definitely need to invest in ourselves and invest in the humanity of ourselves. And I think that this is a wonderful, wonderful vision. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Thanks for inviting me, and I really welcome everybody who's listening or watching to reach out on LinkedIn, say hi, and, let's keep the conversation going.
Absolutely, and we're going to have all of her contact information on our show notes and everything. And again, if you liked what you heard and what you saw, pass it on, share it with folks. Keep it going, and thank you again for joining us on Career View Mirror. See you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to Career View Mirror. If you got value from this episode, please consider leaving a rating and a review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or head on over to Spotify and click 5 stars for our show. We also have a YouTube channel with video versions of our episodes, so subscribe over there for more content. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.